sent an update by NVIDIA. It doesn't look like they're on quite yet, but it sounded like Marian is working together with the Psi community. I'm just reading it to you, to have the infrastructure in place to incorporate the Dash API. So that was his email. I think all of you saw that yesterday. Yes?
I saw it.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. Yeah.
Also, I'd made about a half a dozen or more comments on his pull request, and as of yesterday, he'd resolved all my points and made a number of changes to his tool chain, which is great.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And then they've started working to configure the simulator, so creating definitions and things like that. So if he joins, that's great. If he doesn't, that's his update. I'm just checking to see the people join.
I see Marian joined.
Oh, great, great. Hey, Marian, I just gave your update.
Hi. Yeah,
Hi.
thanks.
You're welcome.
A quick question on that update. If I understood correctly, it sounds like most of the updates were based on auto-generating Psi APIs from a P4 program. There's the separate issue of the data plane behavior of these things. Is that something you're also planning to extend, or is that not part of the plan?
The data plane behavior, what do you mean exactly? Can you please clarify?
Yeah, struct graph is a keyword that doesn't exist in the P4 language in open source tools. It's in your sample code list.
Oh, I understand. Okay, yeah, so missing pieces from both the language and the simulator. Yeah, we have a backlog of those. However, they will be done after we will take on them after we will finish with the Psi to P4 runtime layer. So we are doing this one right now, and the others are in the backlog. We would like to get some help if anyone volunteers, but right now the plan is first we finish all the software layers above, so we can at least run whatever the current P4 software stack supports, and then we will extend this this layer.
Understood. I'm not volunteering, and I'll just say the most likely volunteer you're going to get is somebody commercially interested in paying someone to volunteer.
Yeah, I understand.
So when you say you'll do it after you're done with Psi to P4 layer, is that the Psi to P4 runtime work that you guys are doing? That's what you mean?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And do we have a time frame by which it'll be coming to fruition?
So we only started analyzing the amount of work there because it needs some additional information, which luckily is already available from P4 compiler. So it seems like it's going to happen towards beginning of March.
Okay, thanks.
Great. And so last time we talked about scale numbers, we talked about counters, we talked about HA. And so this time we have our update from Marian. We in the future, we have a couple of homework items to focus on with respect to, counters, metering, scale, those kind of things. And we have this. So Marian, you're saying we'll check back on number 6, 7, and 8, maybe in a couple weeks, did you say?
Mm-hmm. Can I also ask a question? Maybe I missed this about the HA. Is there a document published? Because I could have missed that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you go to the repo here, I hope you're seeing my screen.
Yeah.
And documentation, and then high availability and scale here. You've seen this before, though, I'm sure, but we converted it to Markdown. If you have any questions on the document, please create a pull request so that we can go over it and get back to it. Or I think we have other meetings during the week. We can answer questions too.
Okay, thanks. I will take a look. Thank you.
And then in the notes last week, Marian, we also talked about, I hope you received this, we also talked about it quite a bit here because there were questions that weren't really answered in the document, specifically related to failover and live migration and whether we use the same card, different cards, how do we standardize about communicating between the two cards, even what the synchronization event is and how it's to be developed. And this was more of I believe John Carney was bringing this up last week, right, John?
Right, and we're working on this. This is exciting. We're working on this, and we hope in a future meeting to be able to present some high level information on this. So I think we'll plan that with you, Christina. So yeah, just so everyone knows, we're working on just some high level stuff right now related to these items.
Yep. And Michael Miele and I would be super grateful if any comments to the documents could be put in as suggestions, comments, PRs, however we're doing that would be great, so we can keep track.
Issues is also another way to do it.
Yeah. Yep. And
John, you said, John, you said you were going to work on some flow synchronization
So
ideas.
right, we're currently working on what we think the right model is for interoperability and for like flow synchronization at a high level. And I think we would like to present that at some point in the future, not too far off. And then hopefully if that is if there's some consensus around that, we would follow it up with a more detailed presentation, after that.
That's great. I wanted to ask some general questions about that topic, and maybe I'll just post an issue that's kind of an open question about that. For example, basic things like, is there an assumption that all the synchronization occurs over the in-band links between the DPUs and the TOR? Is there some kind of a route between cards, or is there a dedicated hardware connection between them, or what? Those are kind of basic things that I don't think are stated anywhere.
Hey, Chris, so there will be no hardware connection between cards. And the main thing here is that from the point of view of failed domain, right? All the cards, for example, on one chassis will be under the same power, right? So the replication for high availability needs to happen to the card, which is somewhere else in the data center, right? So that's why this will be over the network.
Right. Okay. So I thought so. I'm going to pose a bunch of specific questions about that too. Like, what's the SLA between cards? What kind of transports are allowed, et cetera, right? Because you can't just assume you can do anything you want on that network, correct?
Yes. So this will be the same shared network on which normal packets are coming into the cards, right? So it will, any like synchronization that is there will eat part of the bandwidth, right? That the card has.
Yeah, and the protocols have to be respected, and addresses and other things, right? I mean, there's just basic stuff. Before we even get to the algorithm, what can the network support in terms of messaging between cards if someone comes up with their own scheme, right?
Like is TCP or UDP over IP before allowed?
Or multicast addresses or whatever. There's all kinds of assumptions we need to start.
Okay, so definitely non-multicast.
Okay, that's why I'm asking these questions, right?
So definitely non-multicast. There need to be unicast communication.
Yeah,
right. And the restriction will be whatever our TORs are kind of configured transferring. Maybe Gohan later can also update this section because he's more familiar with from the physical network on the TORs, right? But this will need to be unicast communication directly between one card and the other card through some channel that is established there, whether it will be UDP or some potentially custom protocol. I'm not quite sure what kind of protocol stores forward. So I will ask Gohan basically to potentially add those limitations.
Right. I'll file an issue just so it's not lost.
Sounds
good on my question. Thanks. That actually got me 80% of the way there.
Yeah, but it's definitely network. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe
Hey,
we covered
Michael,
the cast issue with Lisa when we talked to her as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Michael, a follow-up question on your comment on this, pairing
Mhm.
of DPU pairing for HA purposes. As you mentioned that, for power failure domain, you would want to have this one across chassis, right?
Yes.
But what if there is only one chassis who has multiple cards in them? Would you still consider, or at least from the controller point of view, the controller would still consider pairing DPU cards within the same chassis for the card failure purposes?
From the point of view of scaling, yes, but to distribute part of the traffic, because we also in the future plan, because like each car will be announced their own VIP, right? So we also in the future plan to, for example, split on the source, right? To have like a hardware splitter to split, let's say, 1/4 of the flows to basically one V versus the other versus different card, right? So from the point of view of the scale, sure, but not from the point of view of the availability, because availability basically means that customer is not impacted in case there is a power outage or hardware failure, this kind of stuff, right? If this is the same chassis, if the entire chassis goes down, customer is impacted, right? If the power goes down, customer is impacted. So this doesn't serve the high availability. So needs to be from a different chassis.
So I just want to make it clear to the community that is the Microsoft policy. If you were an enterprise and you wanted to do that, and that was good for your, particular needs, you should be able to do it. We won't do it in Microsoft just because we really are strict about that. But I wouldn't go as far to say that no enterprise would ever use that feature or want to have HA within a chassis. I think that we shouldn't restrict it. It's just not something Microsoft's going to do.
Understood. Thanks, Gerald. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So I view this appliance can be widely used in hybrid cloud applications, and they may be cost sensitive or something. I don't know.
Yep, you're right. Thanks.
Michael, I have a little basic question.
Yep.
So on the synchronization, I heard that synchronization cross chassis will happen on the network, and thinking is maybe multicast, probably not, but TCP UDP. Are these synchronization packets directly consumed by hardware, or there's a control plane interaction?
They will be directly consumed by hardware. There will be no control plane interaction. So here we are talking about synchronization. It's more about replicating flows or metadata of how flow gets constructed from some specific packet from from one device to another. So this will be fully controlled and consumed by the hardware, because just the flows gets created very, very fast, right? There is no way the control plane will do this kind of stuff.
Correct. So if that's the assumption, then I assume there has to be some kind of a protocol definition which hardware can support, right? You need kind of act back that yes, it's consumed or nothing, just fire and forget.
But didn't we decide the last time that this was a sort of overstress for the first version, that in the first version we didn't care to standardize the synchronization protocol?
Right. We talked about this here in the notes last time.
So I think maybe it's worth.
I think we start. I mean, we have a lot of things to do, and if we start from a synchronization protocol that is the most hardware dependent and the most DPU dependent, I mean, I think it's okay to define an interface in which we tell the DPU it needs to synchronize with another DPU, it needs to synchronize all that, and the modality parameter, etc. That interface is perfectly fine. But standardizing the synchronization protocol in terms of packet format, I'm not sure that is fine. If you want to put some requirement that says, oh, we only want to be over TCP or over UDP, that may be fine. But standardizing.
I actually did, guys. I disagree with that. We have lots to do, and we may not be able to standardize it right away. But I don't want to be testing different HA approaches where one assumes one assumes another thing. Everybody does it in a different way. I think that communications protocol is relatively straightforward, and we should define it. Whether it's the top of the list to define, I don't think so, but it will be defined, and we want these things to be testable in the same way. I don't want in the future to be testing HA with one company and find out it behaves differently than another.
I agree, Gerald. That's my concern. My concern is that, let's say today I implement, right? We first is the interface. We also have to come up with a dash sci APIs for it, and then implementation. And I do some implementation which does not interrupt with another vendor. Then I don't want to go back and redo all that effort. So very skeletal level, very basic. We do need some kind of a definition.
I think that there are two. I think that there are two separate cases. There's a case of failover where you're actively synchronizing, and I think that for that case, there is a legitimate constraint that you could put on that case that says that it's just two cards from the same vendor for the purposes of failover, and there should be flexibility to allow the vendor to define what's optimal for them in terms of the protocol. I agree that the Psi APIs that
I'm sorry, I just don't agree with this, guys. It's not that complicated.
No,
and
but
I don't know why we're trying to say that synchronizing connections should be different for everybody because the hardware has nothing to do with hardware.
It does, Gerald. It does, because these packets are produced and consumed by hardware, and also your connection per second rate is very much dependent on how well you can do this.
And that's why we're gonna define it, so it's very optimal. There's people on this call who have proposals for this, and we will go through this and we will try to standardize it.
So Gerald, I think that there's just two cases. Let me finish. One case is the failover case, and the other case is live migration. And I think for the live migration, it makes a lot of sense to be able to standardize. So you can migrate off of one vendor to another vendor. That makes a lot of sense. To me, it doesn't seem to make as much sense when it's for failover purposes.
I'm going to state my opinion. I strongly disagree. I want all the testing to be the same, and there not to be one vendor doing it one way and interpreting it one way, and then saying, "Well, it's okay that our HA took 5 seconds. We thought that was okay." The other one saying, "Oh no, ours is like hitless, 1 microsecond," and it just goes on and on. So I don't think it's as complicated as you're trying to make it out to be. We have some people who are wanting to propose some methodologies. I will look at those, and if they make sense, then we can standardize on them. I think as far as priority, it may not be the highest priority, but at the same time, I don't see this going into our network just willy-nilly. Everybody just picks their approach. We don't have time to test everybody's different approach to HA. They should all work the same way. What happens under the covers in the hardware, I don't care. But as far as how fast they are and what protocols they use, and it makes no sense. The high level protocol to make this work shouldn't be that complex.
Gerald, who owns this topic right now? You said somebody has a proposal.
I think I'll talk to the company to see if they're willing to come forward with the proposal, but obviously we do this today. And then secondly, there's another company who's working on a proposal right now. And so I'm not going to disclose it unless they're willing to come forward, but we'll encourage them to.
Okay. We'll wait for the proposal.
I think one of the outcomes of this discussion is the need for coming up with high-level performance objectives, even if the protocol can't be agreed upon, and we want to leave room for innovation. If we come up with basic measurements and objectives, I think that'll level the playing field in terms of how we rate things and how we measure them, even if there is a unique protocol between them. As long as they can travel over the L3 network, then it doesn't have to be standardized, but certainly the requirements can be standardized, and the metrics for how well they perform.
No, that is not what I heard from Gerald. That is not what I have nothing against that, but that is not what I heard. What I heard is we standardize the protocol.
No, I know.
think we
I'm just,
should.
I'm just
I
offering
think
a
we should,
different
and it should
opinion.
be very similar for HA and migration, by the way. So let's table it.
Yeah.
You know, everything is always open, guys, but right now I would not want to make it a goal not to standardize. I want to make that a goal. And then if we can encourage people to come forth with approaches, and we'll discuss that. We can do a lot of things in parallel. We don't have to do everything in series. So maybe by the next meeting, we'll see if we can encourage the other member to come forward with a proposal.
Yeah, at least I would like to see the strawman so that you get some idea. It don't have to be fully hashed out, just a bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's next in the agenda, but do we want to really go through the issues, the list of questions that are basically put forward as an issue, or list of issues in GitHub?
We can. I think a couple of people had hands up real quick. Let me check here. Michael, you had your hand up.
Yes, this is Michael Miele. I'm working on documentation with Christina. Just in order to, this is more general for the community, in order to be more effective and efficient in terms of documentation, I was wondering what the community thinks about being able to ask, and obviously not all the questions can be put in writing and be put in the PR form, but I was wondering if it's more useful to have a PR for specific topics, like for instance, high availability and scale. And you guys can put some comments and maybe some suggestions on how to improve also the documentation, because this is a work in progress. I think that would be more efficient, and we can be more, we can follow what you guys are asking, provide questions where there are, provide answers where there are answers.
Michael, can I just add on to that?
Yeah.
I would like to distinguish between PRs, which is something that someone wants to commit to the repo. It's already something that's been documented and it's an addition or enhancement, and issues, which would be questions about what's already in there or questions about what should go in there. And issues can be tracked, including complete comment threads and responses before they ever turn into PRs. And I don't think PRs should just be filed to ask questions. PRs should be filed to add content or change content.
That's
let's
what
talk
I meant.
about issues versus PRs. PR should be used a little more carefully, I think.
Yeah, that's what I meant. In general, what the main point that I'm trying to make here, we have a GitHub, and GitHub can be a useful tool for us to follow all this. Otherwise, the things can, besides the meeting notes, obviously we're taking, but we should use GitHub in a more efficient manner. And I would encourage the community to start looking into this.
Yeah, I just filed that top issue right there while we were talking live, just to get a bunch of questions down.
And maybe also suggestions. We are not saying we are going to give the answers, but we are saying also we would be welcoming also the answers, I assume. So that's all.
Michael and Christina will definitely review and add some comments. Sorry, haven't done that yet. We'll do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Do we want to start with pull requests, guys? We had one inside this older connection tracking where Gohan was asking about whether Gohan was asking Marian if this was correct. Marian?
I'm sorry, if someone is running water, would you mind going on mute?
Thank
that
you.
was me. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay, Gerald.
Better than the chainsaw from last week.
I don't know. It was.
I was washing my dinner, my lunch dishes. Sorry.
Yeah, this was a question from Gohan to Marian. I don't know if it's been addressed, but from December.
Yeah. This is a bug, first of all, and second, I will review the full pull request by the end of this week. I didn't get to it yet. I will also review this proposal to see if we can actually incorporate.
I'll just put a comment there. Great, thank you. And I go over here. This one had quite a few. Actually, there's not a lot in there. So this high-level design is a constant work in process by Michael Miele, Chris Summers, and I, and it's almost ready to be closed and pushed to the repo. This is just more to do with like the dash state level interactions that we've added, the text on how those interactions happen, different updates we make to the drawings and designs. So that's what this is. And then this one. I don't know what that one is.
That one looks mostly like small typo.
Yeah.
What's that?
That one looks like mostly small typo fixes.
Yeah. And then we're restructuring the folders and things like that. Maybe we go to issues. This one was pretty interesting. I had answered the question here about the IP options and fragments handled, and I believe we want to handle it similarly to how we do it today in our existing implementation, but I wrote this here. When I tag you guys, do you see my responses?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then maybe we could build that into the behavioral model.
And then I think what happens is that, I think it also depends on how the notifications are set up in individual GitHub accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have set it up that, it should send you an email that, hey, somebody has tagged you, then you're going to get an email, and you have to really watch out for those emails. So,
okay.
And then if it is not set up, if you have not set up your GitHub account to get those things, then probably you're not going to get, find out.
Then I want everyone's cell phone number. I will text you. I'm just kidding. Okay. So I feel like I answered this one, hopefully. And then we've talked about how we feel we need to work on connection tracking. And I
Did we go, is there a pull request, Christina, on the behavior that we found that we do with the fragmentation and why we need to not close the connection for X amount of time in case we have a fragment out of order? Is that in a pull request somewhere?
It is. It was in, I just updated it the other day, and it was in an issue, not a pull request. That I believe that John had asked it in an issue, and I answered it within the issue. And I was just going up to try and find it.
So the behavior model needs to be updated with the correct behavior to handle that.
Yep.
Is there any different perhaps lower performance requirement for handling? Effectively, you want IP fragment reassembly in this product, right?
No, that's not not clear we do at all. I think the endpoints do that, but when you go to close the connection because you got a fin, it's possible that a fragment is out of order, and what we do with our designs is
It's right here.
Yeah, we hold for X number of X amount of time to make sure that a out of order fragment doesn't follow the fin packet. And so we've given, the numbers that we use, and this is the way our cloud works today. And this was not in the behavioral model. Nobody really thought to put this, this there. So Mellanox or someone who's going to work on the VNet behavioral model needs to add the behavior that we need here.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up separately. Yeah.
Mike, can I follow up with a question? So all the ACLs you want are based on source test IP, source test L4 ports, typically. IP fragment, non-first fragments for TCP and UP don't have L4 ports. What do you want to do with those?
The same that we do with VFP, probably. Michael or James, do we know?
The question was, what do we do with IP fragments?
I'm
sorry.
IP fragments that are not the first one, that don't have a TCP or UDP header, so you have no idea when you receive the packet what the L4 port was of the initial fragment, if it's even.
That's very specific, isn't it?
Hold on, but how the LP
for
fragments?
years, so I know this is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, but how those kind of fragments are being mapped right now for the existing connection in case you guys have existing flow that you guys need to forward? You guys need to also map it correctly, right?
I'm asking you what your requirement is, and then I'll tell you how hard it is.
Well, so to be honest, I'm not from VFP team, so I'm probably they solve it somehow. But I don't know the answer on top of my head.
Okay. So yeah, if you put it in as an issue, we'll chase it for you.
Yeah.
Andy?
Again, because to make the behavioral model, it's like we can say it's stated, but it will be very hard to do without understanding that. Like currently we are doing 5-tuple cache for connection tracking, and you do not have. You won't be able to send the second fragment to the same place.
Typically, implementations do software-based IP reassembly if you care.
Right. But again, this is not currently what we are doing. We are not doing IP fragment reassembly.
That's right. Let's get that done at the host, guys. Specifically, we brought the fragments up. It's because of the misordering, potential misordering that could happen. And if we incorrectly close a connection and there is a fragment misordered and we close the connection right away, it is possible to lose that, and we don't want to. And so we've stated what we do in our VFP for that specific application. I think somebody's talking about a different thing, but we're not talking about doing reassembly. We're talking about the case where misordered packet comes in after we close a connection because we saw a fin.
Sure. I'll open an issue with my
more general. So if
So,
there's go ahead.
Real quick, maybe I think the scenario here is important to capture. Was it John? Were you the one who brought up the fragment after the first fragments, assuming it's IP traffic? Yeah, like, can you shoot me an email just with the specific scenario that you're talking about, or we can post it into GitHub if you want to, but I want to capture
James.
that
we
scenario.
Always post it into GitHub, but yeah, you can communicate beforehand, but that has to go into the GitHub so everybody else can follow it.
I just want to make sure we capture this one specific scenario because I think I know what we're getting at here, and I just want to check up on it.
I will create a public GitHub issue, and if you send me in chat what your GitHub ID is, I can ping you on it.
Okay, awesome.
I believe it's JAGR, Jagger.
Yeah, I think I did that at Jagger at Microsoft, but here I'll send you a quick message right now.
Yeah.
Somebody was trying to say something.
Yeah. This is John. So the thing about the fin wasn't specifically about out of order fragments. It was about the fact that there are acts that can happen after the fin, and perhaps this time covers the window in which you would expect to get acts. But it seems if you're going to keep this flow around for 5 to 240 seconds, then at very high connection per second rates, this drives very huge flow tables that if you had done a tighter connection tracking, for example, if you track the sequence numbers, I'm not saying that that's a requirement, but if you did, you could have potentially removed the flow earlier than the 5 to 240 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And that's a potential, definitely I agree with you on that one. That's a potential solution to the problem. We wanted to just point out that we need to resolve it and put it in the behavioral model. And so that's actually, potentially that is a way to do it much quicker. So.
Thank you for the, thank you
May
for
I have a follow-up question on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you mentioned this is a current deployment in Microsoft right now in terms of how long we want to hold off until when we receive the fin. But in the test document, so I get this is to the point I just mentioned, where the timeout seemed to be able to control and set it at 1 second to test how many connections been cleaned up and how many is still outstanding. So the question I have is it expectable to have the timer configured differently for different connection, given the fact that the connection now is learned and programming hardware? Will that timer control at the ENI level, or what is the granularity of the control?
Granularity of the control of the timer. By default, the timer for the fin. So when there's basically like a fin those kind of stuff, right? How long this will be keep? This is usually the same for usually all the connections. With regards to timer configuration, there is some scenario with regards to load balancing. In case there is some rules which are handled with load balancing for the inactive flows, because there is a separate stuff with regards to timer that if there is an inactive flow, this inactive flow also has a timer that at some point it basically will need to be removed if there is basically no packets coming through the flow, right? Because the just the source or the destination may die and they will never basically send fins, right? So so some flows needs to be removed. And we do have a scenario, not often used, but some customers are using this, where they can increase the timeouts for specific connections going to specific ports. Let's say, for example, if the customer is going to SQL, sometimes the SQL connections are dormant for a very long time, even though they should have keep alive messages. So there is some configuration for this type of timer that sometimes on some rules we may need to add, but not the timer for in case there is a fin, how long the connection should be, how long the flow should be kept before just to wait for this basically the fragments.
So, so the fin will be a global timer. That's what I just heard. But the aging timer for the flow, the granularity can be finer,
yeah.
right? So then, then can you elaborate more on what is the control for the aging timer? Then.
So usually the control of the aging timer will be for us. This will be specific, let's say, route rule or ACL rule.
Sorry, I missed the last part. You said
like on the rule, like based on the rule. So if this
based on the rule,
yeah. Okay. If this hits specific rule, then basically this means we need to override it for a specific time. Yeah, but we didn't document it yet, right? This is more like software load balancing scenario, so it's slight addition to the VNet to VNet traffic, right? But this is kind of like the next step potentially.
So anyways, I think that maybe Michael and Maddie and whoever wants to be involved should have a separate meeting to figure out what the behaviors should be and how many timers we need. But my concern is I don't want the VNet behavior model to be people thinking it's finished when it doesn't deal with these scenarios yet. So we should revisit and make sure that it's complete, because it's going to be the golden source of truth, right? The behavioral model.
Gerald, I completely agree, and then obviously we want to really also see that, I guess from the day one, we are seeing some model there. And we are also hearing that, okay, these are not complete. But I guess we probably need to start also putting some timeline by which we think we want to get it completed, right? So
I wanted to get it completed before Christmas, but it didn't happen.
So we're already basically behind, but I think we can probably set ourselves some goal in the future to see that, by when we should, shoot for it, right?
Yes.
Lisa, you had a question?
Hi, can I add a comment?
Yeah.
Thank you. This is Dhiranjan. I want to reiterate the comment that someone made earlier that, there's a lot of complexity in dealing with fragments, especially fragments in the middle of the network. There's a difference between handling them at transit devices versus handling them at the final destination. Mm-hmm. And so, you don't have the layer 4 information. That's the first part. The packets may not get routed the same way. They may not even show up at the same device. So my request to the Microsoft team is, please look at the larger requirement in terms of fragments and not the specific use case of, dealing with timeouts. There are potentially bigger problems because this functionality is now moving away from a VFP at a host or a host NIC to a device which is sitting in the middle of the network.
Yeah, but that's a tunnel, and so it's as if it's on the NIC. It's so it must go there. It's not optional to go there. So you can think of that NIC as sitting on the host. It's got a tunnel, and it's forced.
So then there are two separate scenarios you have to think about. One is, do you have fragmentation of the packets before they enter the tunnel, or do you have fragmentation after the tunnel has been created?
There's no fragmentation after the tunnel.
Okay,
Michael, that's true, right? We don't fragment within our network.
Yeah, within the network, we basically use the jumbo frames. So we don't fragment, like VMs usually cannot outreach the jumbo frames.
Okay, and so then you are looking at the case where the inner packet is fragmented for some reason, but the tunnel is not. Yep. Okay, so then getting to the right location may not be a problem, but then doing further processing at that point may be difficult because you don't have the layer 4 information in the fragments in the inner packet for the non-first fragment. So I won't take more time on this. Just
yeah, and
that's
why the VFP group said it's not a matter of having the information or not. It's a matter of waiting a specified time after the FIN arrives in case a fragment is out of order. They weren't even suggesting that you try to look to see if it's out of order. They just said in case one's out of order, you wait this amount of time, and that's the way our network works today.
The issue there, Gerald, the issue there, Gerald, is you don't even know which flow it applies to.
What do you mean? We always know which flow. This is a flow processor, right? Everything is done at the flow level here.
I know, but
this
the
is
first
connection
fragment,
4. This is layer 4 stuff.
The first fragment of the packet will have the full 5-tuple information. Subsequent fragments will only have the IP addresses. They will not have the layer 4 information because that header was not replicated in the subsequent fragments. So when you receive that packet and it comes out of a tunnel, you will see a fragment inside with the IP header, but no layer 4 information.
Hey, Niranjan and Gerald. John had volunteered to write this up, and he's putting it on GitHub. I think we can do a deeper look at this and just verify, Gerald, if what you say is true. And we've already taken a step to capture this scenario. So Niranjan, if you want to follow the thread that John posts and add any details, let's do that.
Is he the VFP? We had the answer from the VFP people themselves, so let's make sure they're involved. They gave the answer of what the behavior is supposed to be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to look at what the VFP folks gave us, and I want to review it in the context of this scenario in particular, and just make sure we understand everything.
Yeah, I'm just confirming if we, in general, because like I'm speaking separately on the chat with Gohan, and like I don't think we have fragments in overlay layer that customer outreach, but I'm just confirming this with VFP because all the VFP matching is also based on the 5-tuple match.
Mm-hmm.
If the fragments don't have 5-tuple, I also don't know. They should not be matching this. So I don't believe we have fragments, to be honest, on the overlay layer, but that's an interesting question. We need to confirm it. Because on the underlay, we don't fragment packets, right? We use jumbo frames and they just flow.
Right.
Yeah, we need to confirm it. And the question will be also from the point of view of the express route devices, right, which are coming to our network, right, in case the express route circuit is doing some fragmentation. But like, I don't believe this is happening, but I will wait for the VFP team to comment on this. Right now, my gut feeling says that we don't have fragments on overlay layer.
Yeah, and
it doesn't have L4, yeah.
You can go into chat right now, and John already posted the GitHub thread. So let's collaborate there.
Cool.
If the overlay packets, have the additional headers, if that is incorporated, the size of it in the MTU, in the jumbo packet size that you have configured, then it should be okay. similar to underlay.
Yep. That's why I don't believe you have the problem with fragmentation that doesn't have the L4 or anything like this.
So let's just
yeah,
follow
because
up.
because if this happens, this will need to be fragmented by the customer, right? So the customer will need to send fragment inside their VMs.
Yes,
because then once it leaves the VMs, yeah.
They could, right? We can't control that, so they can send fragmentation.
Yeah, but at the same point, I wonder if we even in this case, because like we cannot judge the packet if it doesn't have L4 on the rules one by one, and it also will not match established flow. So I believe we will just drop the packet if customer basically does this. Let's confirm it, right?
Yep.
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I feel like we've gone through the issues and the PRs to the point where we can. Does anyone else have anything this week, or we could break?
Gerald mentioned earlier about some offline meetings about HA discussions. Matty and everyone, please include us as well. We've done a bit of work there, so it'll be good to discuss together.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no problem. And I believe, Rashmi, you had said you're looking around for resourcing for SciPTF. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and we do have that, and we should begin the work soon. We already have that now.
Thank you.
We have identified the resource. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so Christina, I opened an issue and try to get a confirmation, kind of
That's
continuation from the last discussion regarding whether the controller need to be aware of the dynamically learned flow.
I thought we talked about that last week, where Michael said the controller didn't need to be aware. But here it is, right here.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get a confirmation if that is the right understanding, because I didn't quite get the firm answer last time. I may have missed it.
Okay. One more time, Michael. What's the question exactly, Lisa?
So for the dynamically learned flow, is that correct that the controller does not need to know about it when it's learned program and when it's deleted in both scenarios?
It can't. There's millions and millions and millions and millions per second coming from the network. It's impossible for it to do that. So the answer is no.
No, you not aware. And if that is the case, similarly, the statistic for the flow also, right? Because you don't know about the flow,
Yeah,
so then the statistic you won't. You will be
sampling
aggregate at the
sampling statistics we need to. So it's like this: we don't need to know for every single flow, right? However, the statistics on flow, which is, for example, the metering, because like each flow has will be incrementing some metering bucket on which we are being customers, right? We don't care per flow, but we care later to query, let's say, every 10 seconds the statistics per bucket. So, for example, lots of flows may be going, let's say, across peering, right? And we don't care basically which flows are going across peering. We just care that basically bytes on a peering bucket gets incremented, right? So we are querying those kind of buckets, right? However, there's also scenarios when a customer can also do random sampling, which means that they can ask us to, for example, query the current flows, right? So it's not every single flow, but for example, every, let's say, X amount of second, we should be able to, for example, per ENI, let's say, dump the current like flows that is basically like, but mostly from the customer perspective, which is like source, destination, source port, destination port, and protocol, so the customer can sample this. This is being used, right? But not a very close tracking on every single flow and reporting on every single flow to the control plane.
And that will all be spelled out in the, there's a few people working on that right now because it's not documented yet, but we intend to document all of the telemetry, the metering, accounting, etc. And hopefully we'll be able to put something out there soon.
Thanks for the
Okay, so
question.
that sorry, so Joe, so that will go into the general dash HLD.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And then
That'll be a big help.
Comments from others as well. But we'll document everything that we collect and why, and then we'll put it out there, and other people can say, hey, I need something else. That's fine. But there are a couple people internally here trying to gather that information.
Right, and we have it partially documented in the HLD right now. And as we get more, we can go forward under the counter section, or the SDN transforms. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong document. Okay, thanks for the question, Lisa.
Sorry, Christina. One follow up to what Michael was saying. So you don't need to know every single flows learned, but you need the capability for the user to say for a certain interval how many flow and what they are has been learned on a particular ENI or particular ACL matching a particular ACL rule. Did I get that right or?
That'd be part of the documentation.
Yeah, that'd be
okay.
part of the documentation.
Okay, so I'll wait then. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, great. Well, this time maybe we can end on time or a bit early, unless there's a burning question.
I just have one quick question, guys. Hopefully quick, and that is, I think there was one discussion about the route scale, and we saw that the route scale basically, increases substantially in when we go to the express route use case, right? So I just want to know that out of, all what is basically all types of different use cases that we are, trying to address as part of Dash, what percentage of the activity or customers that use this, express route scenario, so we know that, okay, what's the percentage of the I guess connections that we're talking about that will be express route based?
I don't think we would mix an appliance doing express route with an appliance doing VM acceleration, though. Michael, is that not true? It would be pretty specific to express route. Did Michael leave?
Yeah, if Michael dropped off, I mean, there's a few different ways we could handle that, Gerald. But what you're suggesting is maybe that it would be handled separately for the express route cases, and so we need to look at that. But I guess the observation is, yes, if you're using express route, your ENI size might increase because of the routes that you have to account for.
Right.
But
and it would completely blow up your small, medium, and large t-shirts.
Well,
because it's so different.
Yeah,
it's so different.
Yeah,
right? It
yeah,
needs
your
to be like.
you may
Well,
not fit
scale
to the
scale has
same
been a hot topic, and James has been
Yeah.
working very hard in the background to
Yeah.
come up with memory footprints, sizing.
Yeah.
He's been working a lot towards that. So it's not fallen off of the radar, guys.
No, absolutely. Thanks. No, I just want to remind that there was one comment
That
last
is
week's
great,
meeting.
Hanif. Thank you.
Yeah. There was one comment from Michael in the last week's meeting when route scale was discussed, and then it said, okay, for per ENI, we're talking about 100K routes, and as basically, the max number of routes that should be supported. But then the subsequent comment was that, okay, in typical case, a majority of times, it won't be more than 10K. But when it comes to express route scenario, then we will hit, close to 100K. So, and that's why I was wondering, what percentage of the scenarios we are talking about for express route, so that we can design things
Hanif,
accordingly, right? So
you're borrowing trouble, Hanif. We're not even there. Just kidding.
And
So
to address that, I think one of the things that we're considering is we're doing a memory footprint analysis, and we're breaking that down between mappings, routes, ACL layers, and things of that nature to get a complete picture of what the min and max of each one is, and then using essentially the memory footprint of Sonic to measure what a min and max might look like. So we can present to you a range of what you might deal with, but Gerald's observation is correct in that in actual implementation, we may wish to separate out some of the scenarios so that you don't necessarily always have to account for that max, but we can do that analysis, and that's a great point to bring up.
Now, John, you're the last one with your hand up. Did you forget to lower your hand, or do you have a question?
So I have a question. It might be quick.
Okay, cool. Got 3 minutes.
Okay, so I understood what Mikhail said about like that the counters are sort of indirect, like the routes or the mappings might point you to a counter, and many flows will be incrementing like a shared set of counters. What I wanted to know is like, what's the actual number of counters like per ENI that we could expect in terms of scale?
That's what's being documented. So until the
Okay.
document's done, we couldn't tell you that. But there are people working on that.
Okay.
Actively.
Could you tell us whether it's like millions or whether it's thousands or, you know?
I think it's hundreds. Is
Okay.
it, James? Like if we're basing it off of the counters we see in VFP?
Hundreds of counter total, I think is millions of counter total.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I'm
100,000 of counter
misunderstanding.
total.
Well,
No,
there's
we have three different
there's
opinions now.
yeah, there's I think we need to define the counters that we want to capture, what's already available in Sonic, what the deltas are for this implementation, and then essentially how much storage we're allocating for each of those counters. So we're going to have multiple counters, but then each of the counter buckets, how much memory are we giving, and how much buffer history do we have for each of those buckets? And I think that's what folks are looking for. And so
Prince has the list of what we have now, and he's comparing it to Sonic.
yeah, and so we have other folks looking at what we think the deltas will be for anything that we need to account for that's different in the Sonic implementation versus what's available in the OS today, because some stuff is just there, right? But then some things need to be thought of in the context of ENI, so they may be either changing slightly, or we may need to add one or two, and that's what the exercise is. And then from there we can take the sizing to tell you what the appropriate numbers are.
All right, well, it's 1 minute till. Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
I think that sounded like an explanation that has to do with like how much memory Sonic will need for these. My concern is more about the data plane and like how many counters we need to maintain in the data plane. I thought it was like sort of a function of like how many billing domains there are. And that like, most of the traffic falls into like a small number of.
Again, guys, let's wait for the document. The document should answer all of these questions.
Okay.
It will have at least all the counters that we use in today's cloud to run this service.
Right. Okay, so John, I'll see you in an hour or two. I have 10 o'clock if everyone else does, and I want to thank you for your time and all the great questions and the participation. And James, I appreciate you coming. And thanks, everybody. I'll get notes out in a day or so.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, everyone.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.